Hi guys, it's Lauren from Mommy in the City, and I've had such a great response from my vlog on Tuesday on my pet peeves, one of them being unsolicited parenting advice, that I've decided to do another vlog just telling you some of the outlandish things that people have said to me on the street, trying to give me advice. The first one that probably makes me the most mad that someone said to me was that Harlan and I were on the bus, and I was going to the gym, and she had my Metro card in her hand. And for those of you that aren't familiar with New York City public transportation, our Metro card is just kind of like a credit card. It's a little bit flimsier, but that's what we use to get on the bus or on the subway. And so she was throwing a tantrum before the bus. She didn't want to wait for it. So I just gave her my Metro card to kind of keep her occupied, keep her happy. I mean, for those of you that are moms and no toddlers, you'll do anything to make them happy. So I gave it to her, and we got on the bus, and we sat down next to this older woman. And Harlan was kind of chewing on the card, putting it in her mouth. I mean, things that toddlers do. And the woman looks at me and goes, "You probably want to have her take that out of her mouth because she's going to cut herself, cut her lip." And I was like, "Oh, she's fine, don't worry. I'm looking after her." And the woman looks back at me and says, "You just don't care about her." And I was like, okay. And I kind of did everything I could to not just yell and scream at her at that moment. And I said, "Ma'am, I do care about her. She is my daughter. I am her mother, and I'm looking after her." And she goes, "No, you just don't care." And I said, "Ma'am, she is my daughter. I do care. How dare you judge my parenting abilities?" And I think people around heard her and were just as shocked as I was. And she said something back to me along the lines of, "No, I don't think you care at all." And I just kind of ignored her at that point because I was really so angry that someone would ever say that to me that I just kind of ignored it and went on. But that was probably the worst thing that anyone has ever said to me, giving me parenting advice. Another thing that someone said to me on the side of on the sidewalk actually, and this was the other night, they looked at Harlan and looked at her and said, "How old is that?" Yes, they referred to my daughter as that. And I don't know if she just didn't know that Harlan was a girl or a boy. I mean, some people get her confused because she is bald. But I've never had anyone ever refer to her as that. It kind of made me mad. I mean, I was really angry. Another one is that, and this kind of happens all the time, and I know it happens to a lot of moms on the street, is people will come up, and if it's the winter time, and if Harlan doesn't have on a hat or gloves or anything like that, they insist on coming up and taking the hat from my hand, which I have, and putting it back on her head, or taking the gloves that are hanging from her because she just took them off and putting them back on. They insist on touching her and then telling me, "Why don't you have her gloves on? Why don't you have her hat on?" And they don't realize that 2 seconds earlier she took them off because she was throwing a tantrum, or because she wanted to get her drink, or she just was uncomfortable. I usually have a blanket on her, and she's in a foot muff, so she's fine. She's not, in any danger. I would never put her in danger. But people insist on coming up and touching her and making her better, I guess, making her feel better. But it's funny because 2 seconds after they walk away, she ends up taking them off again. So those are just some of the outlandish things that people have said. I was kind of inspired to do this after you guys were just so shocked as to what people have said. And I was like, oh yeah, there's more stories I need to tell you. So I'm sure there will be many more as I walk the streets of New York City, and people just feel free to give me their parenting advice, even though I do not ask. Do you guys have any things that people have said to you, or parenting advice that people have said to you, unsolicited? I would love to hear what you have to say in your stories.